Hi everybody, I'm Kurt, owner of Extreme Audio in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Today we're going to be putting in one of our plug-and-play systems in this 2025 Road Glide. We're going to give you step-by-step installation all the way through. We're also going to be cutting in the lids in the back, so it's going to be a 4-speaker Stage 3 system. So let's get started.
I'm going to go ahead and take the seat off. There's a T25 screw head here and right here for the strap. I'm going to back both those out and then take the seat off. So now we're going to put our templates on before we get ready to cut. We're going to put them in place. Make sure that they are seated down correctly all the way around, no gaps. And then I'm going to put a couple of screws in here to hold it in place before I get started with cutting. Always double check, make sure that you're not off. Okay, so I'm going to drill a couple of entry points so that I can get my saw into place and make my cut on the template. So one on each panel usually works well. You can do all of them if you like, but it's not necessary. I'm just using a 7/8 step out bit as well, just enough to where the plastic is touching, or where the cut of the bit is touching our template plastic, and that should be enough to get us started. So with this template, I'm about to get started with our cut. I typically try to stay on the inside line of my template versus the outside. Reason being is that I can't add any more back to this piece of plastic once I've cut it. So if I stay to the inside and maybe I've missed just a touch, I have a little room that I can always grind it out of the way if necessary. But if I've cut too much off and I've cut on the exterior line, I'm too far gone. I won't be able to replace it. So it's important to stay on the inside line of our template when we make our cut. All right, now we're going to install our grills and the speaker housings. This is just a sandwich style assembly. There'll be screws on the underside I'm going to take off to open it up. There's one here, one here, one here, and one down in here. And then this grill will lift off of here. All right, so now we're going to put our grill on here, and we'll open it up from the other side. Install this piece that holds our speaker, and these two put together kind of sandwich the two and create a watertight seal so that we don't have any leakage into our bag once we are finished. So when I do the install, I usually try to start with a couple of the easier ones that I can see. That'll help me line up the other ones. So this one here is usually one of the easier ones, and then this one here that sticks out. So if you get these two ears started and then finish the other two, it usually goes pretty easy. So now I need to plunge a hole through the side of the bag in order to create access for our speaker lead to come in. I'm going to use my 7/8 step out bit, and I'm going to look over here in the side of my saddlebag and make sure that I have a clean shot to shoot a hole through. If you look over the top, you'll see there's some parts of the bike I want to avoid. So I'm going to put my hole right about here, just beneath our saddlebag bolt to secure it in place on this flat panel right here. I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. All right, so now I'm going to put my harness for my speakers in place. You'll see there's a rubber grommet for each side. Green will go to the left side, purple will go to the right. So right where I just drilled those holes, I'm now going to run these speaker leads through there. I usually take a little bit of spit and just take and wipe it around these rubber grommets. That helps kind of pull it through. So I take and I bend my speaker leads a little bit like this, so I can kind of fish them down there in the side, and they'll poke through the hole I just made, and then I can pull everything into place. If I still have trouble getting that rubber boot into place, I can always disconnect the bag from the bike itself and wiggle it into position. And you could take your fairing panel here, your side panel, and kind of tuck your wires around it like that. So now we're going to put our jumper plug in place. Now that we have our leads established into the bags, this is just going to plug into the port that is underneath your seat. So we're going to disconnect this and this. We're going to plug this guy in line. I'm going to put a zip tie right here. I'm going to secure this speaker lead here to the frame of the bike. Sometimes a little tricky, but if you bend your zip tie a couple times, you can get it to kind of wrap around that pipe of the frame here itself. And we're just going to kind of bundle this up, keep it out of the way, but it's nice to have it where you can kind of maneuver it and keep it out of the way of anything else. But there should be plenty of room underneath here. All right, so now we're going to create our tweeter bridge. Now it's going to require this bag of hardware right here, which also has our speaker hardware as well, so you can set these aside. So these pieces right here are the ones that we will need for creating these tweeter towers. And you'll see that they're tapered on one side. That's where these guys go in. So we'll go 1 and 2 like that. And then these spacer collars will go on top of those. Like that. And then we put the tweeter bridge on top of that. But once you have it there, you can kind of tighten it all up. Place the lock nuts on the other side. And small adjustable wrench should take care of what you need. A screwdriver for the other side. We just need to tighten them up till they're snug. All right, so now I'm going to put the tweeter within the housing itself. You're going to want to make sure that you put them in accordingly. This little lead here, or notch here, is to accommodate the tweeter lead, and that's going to go to the interior side of the bike when you mount it on the bike. So you want to kind of visually think about it when you're putting the tweeter in place, whichever direction you'd like to have that extreme audio label. Once you place that in, make sure that you do the one on the other side so that it matches. And we're going to use these 4 black button-headed screws, and you just screw into that little housing there like this. So now I'm going to attach our tweeter lead onto the tweeter posts. You'll see on the back they're labeled accordingly. One will have a red stripe, one will not. Red stripe is obviously our positive, so you attach that one there. And our negative lead goes over here. So now I have my tweeter leads hooked up to it. I had some fabric tape that I've used to cover my red speaker lead just so that it's not quite as visual through the grill once we're finished. But what you want to do now is get them into this little notched area so that they stay out of the way when we are doing our installation. And as I mentioned before, this will be to the interior side of the bike. So when we are done, this will be sticking out, and it gives us access to plug into our crossover lead that will be established a little later in this video. So now I'm going to take this gasket material, and we are going to take and line it on both sides of this so that when we seat our speaker down, everything is good and watertight. So when you're all finished, it'll look something like this. So now we're going to install our speaker. That tweeter bridge that we put together before, we're going to put together with the speaker as we're installing it into our bag lid. So we'll open it up like so. And it usually is a little easier to try to mount one and then place the other one on top. So I'm going to put this one into the position I want it to be in. As I mentioned, those tweeter leads are going to be to the interior side of the bike, so they're going to be facing this way. So when you close it, they'll be, it's at the exterior side of the bike, but what it appears to be is the interior as you're working on it. Alright, so now I'm going to put the lead on for our 6x9 so that we can create the lead to get signal into our speaker. And you'll see this red for positive, black for negative, and they are labeled on our post here with a plus and a negative. So I'm just going to back them out appropriately and attach them. Okay, we're going to attach this to our leads coming into the bag. Red for positive, black for negative. You look for black stripe on our lead here. So black stripe will be our negative. We're going to make sure we put that together. And red is going to go into the positive. Like that. And then we have our lead to come into our speaker for our 6x9. And then also for our tweeter, we're going to split this into two. So we have a splitter that will come in our kit. This one here, it'll be labeled 4 lids. You have a male end and a female end. The male end we just established here. Plug this into here, it now creates 2. One for our 6x9. The other one is going to be for our crossover. And it only goes one way. This one's going to be the input side as it's labeled. Put that one in there. And the other one is going to go over here to the tweeter lead, which we already established over here. The tweeter is connected via the crossover. Our 6x9 is connected out of our splitter here. And now we'll just button it up and we're all finished. We're going to take our sticky tabs. We're going to run a couple here and here. And then we're going to zip tie our wire to that to keep it out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to take the remaining excess wire and we're going to kind of bundle it up underneath a bag strap and zip tie it all together like this, but I'm going to hide it underneath the strap so that it's not visible when we open our bag. You have to take both of these strap screws off in order to get it underneath this last one. It's with a T15. If you take them out of your way, you can take and hide the wire just underneath here.
Now that we have the rear speakers installed, we're going to take off the side cover and pull the 60 amp fuse. This is going to prevent any engine codes from coming up, from the alarm going off when we disconnect the power wire. So it's always a good idea to pull the fuse first. So we're going to take this saddlebag off. We're going to disconnect our speaker wire. And we'll set that aside. Now that we have our saddlebag removed, we're going to take the side cover off. You simply pull. It has 3 little tabs that'll just pressure fit in. And we're going to remove this 60 amp fuse, but before we do that, we're going to turn on the ignition and simply pull the 60 amp fuse. Next thing we're going to do is remove the fairing. Before we do that, we're going to protect our fender by putting a fender cover over the fender. I'm using a Harley-Davidson fender cover, but you could use anything. Padded blanket, pillow, whatever you want to use. This will prevent it from getting dented or scratched if anything were to fall on it. We're going to start by removing the factory speaker grills. What you're going to want to do is keep a little pressure down here because there are some tabs and you don't want to break them off. Even though we are replacing these, you still don't want to break them. So you can just give a little tug up here and kind of work it out. These are the little tabs, and then these two lock it in place. First thing we're going to do is remove the 4 screws that hold in the windshield. They're all T25. And when you take it out, be careful. There's a little gasket on here, and you want to make sure that you don't lose that. Next, we're going to remove these 3 screws on each side. They're T25. Now we're going to remove this front cover. There's 2 pop pins in here, so if you just apply a little bit of pressure, it simply snaps off. Those are the 2 pins that hold it in place. Then we're going to remove this cover. Be careful that you don't lose these little feet. They do want to slide out, and I know Harley put some tape in place so you don't lose them. You definitely make sure that if the tape is missing on yours, that you don't lose these. So there's 8 screws that hold this in place. We're going to start by removing these top 2. And I'm going to leave these 2 for last. So there's 2 screws behind the speaker grill. There's also 2 screws down low. Now that we have the 6 screws removed, we're going to remove these last 2. And now you can simply slide the fairing off. Next, we're going to remove our headlight. There's 6 screws, all T25. There's 2 here, 2 kind of tucked back in here, and 2 down low. I'm going to leave this one in for last. Now we'll remove this one. And we're going to unplug our headlight. simply push on the tab and pull it out. There's a little tab right there. This headlight wire comes from the factory running over the top of the amplifier. We have already relocated it. We're going to tuck some of this in so there's not so much hanging out. But just so you're aware, it gets in the way of the amplifier and it's much better down below. Next, we're going to remove the stock amplifier by removing these 4 T25 screws. Then to remove the plug, we're simply going to slide this red tab back, press down, and slide the amplifier out. Next, we're going to take out the stock Harley-Davidson speaker and replace it with the SS65 mid-bass driver. Simply remove the 4 T25 screws and unplug the speaker wire. Before we put our speaker in, we're going to make sure that these terminals are tight by simply squeezing it down. Sometimes when you pull them off, they get a little bit loose and you don't want them to fall off. Now that we know we have our terminals tight, simply slide it on the SS tail and it's a direct fit. Next, we're going to install our SS tweeter into our new Road Glide grill. It's pressed in, so it's going to have a flush fit. And we're also going to use our mount to mount it to the grill. This also has a tab on it to zip tie the wires so you can make it for a nice clean install. Simply going to align the tweeter hole. So once you got all 4 screws tightened in, it's all set to go. All right. Once you have your wire installed, you can zip tie the wire down. There's a little tab on the tweeter holder to zip tie the wire, so it's nice and neat. Our SS tweeters come with all different adapters. A 2014 and up speaker plug. We have tails to reverse polarity on the tweeter if need be. We also have a Y connector if you're doing it for lids. It comes with the crossover and a whole bunch of different adapters, so it will work on every Harley that there is. Next, we're going to remove our gas tank. I prefer to take these off. It's just 1 bolt and it makes it a little bit easier to get the gas tank out. This again is a T25. Before we remove the gas tank, we're going to disconnect the vacuum lines. There's one here. There's also one up front. Slide the hose off. Next, we're going to remove the 4 1/2-inch bolts. There's 2 right here. There's 2 on the side. We'll have to remove the rubber grommet first. Now that we have the 4 bolts out, we're going to remove the fuel line. You simply slide up on this silver collar. You might get a little bit of gas there. Make sure you have something there to wipe it up. And then there's going to be a plug back here for the fuel pump. Simply slide on the tab and pull the wire out. Just push down on this little tab here. When we lift up the gas tank, there's going to be this vacuum line here that's connected to the frame. We're going to want to get our hands underneath there and simply slide it up off the tabs. And once you got that released, you can take your gas tank off. Next, we're going to remove this cover so we can run our power wire from the battery underneath the gas tank. I'm going to cut these zip ties. We're going to cut this tape and pull it back. We're going to release these tabs. Simply work it off. Now we're going to run our power wire through this channel. So simply slide this back, and we're going to tuck our wire right through that hole where all the rest of the wires run through. Now that we have our wire ran, we're going to put the cover back on. Next, we're going to connect our power and ground. Simply going to pull these out. Slide this guy forward to release it from the plate. Same with this one. We'll be able to remove that cover and take the VCM out and set it aside. We're going to have one T25 screw here that we're going to want to remove, and then we'll have access to both the positive and negative. Now that we have our connections made, we're going to do everything back in reverse. Now that we have the power and ground hooked up, we're going to put our gas tank back on. You're going to want to make sure you get the vacuum line snapped back into the channels on the frame. We'll put the 4 half-inch bolts back in place. I like to start them all before I tighten them up. Don't forget to put your rubber gaskets back on. Next, we're going to put our seat back on. Make sure you clip the front. Just kind of push down a little bit, work it on. Now we're going to route our headlight wire and our power wire. We're going to simply take the power wire and tuck it behind this bracket. And that's going to route right over the top and connect to our amplifier. And then we're going to take the headlight wire that we removed from the top, and we're going to pull some of the slack on each side. So that'll give us a nice length to plug in the headlight. Next, we're going to install our amp plate. This plate was specifically designed for the Road Glide 2024 and up bike. It bolts right into the stock location that your amplifier bolted into, and it uses the stock hardware. For this install, we are going to be using the Siren HD Volunteer Audio A to B module. These guys have done a fantastic job. This one is definitely the best one, and it's the one that we sell in our kits. We're also going to use a bracket that we developed that will bolt it right in place right here. And it simply just plugs in. Slide your tab back and it will plug into our amplifier. And then these do come pre-tuned with our tune on it, but we will show you how to download the tune depending on which model you use, the SS, the EX, or the RE. There's different tunes for each setup. Right now we have Phillips screws in here, but we will have a T25 that will be included with the mount. Next, we're going to install the amplifier. I like to start by putting 2 screws in first. Just start them. Then you can slide the amp in place and put the other 2 screws in. So we're going to take our power wire and we're simply going to plug it in. Make sure these tabs are all the way down. You'll hear a little click. And you know that's in place. And then we'll plug in our speaker wire. Once we got those in place, we're going to do our RCA wire. I'm going to cut the caps off. Now that we got the caps cut off, I'm going to slide some heat shrink on each one. We're going to plug that in and we're going to heat shrink it to make sure that no moisture gets in there, that doesn't come loose. This will protect it and it makes for a better install. And you can see they're clearly marked, channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and so are the RCAs coming off of our amplifier. Once we got all 4 in place, we're going to heat shrink them. Simply slide the heat shrink over the connector. I like to use this cooking torch. Makes for a fast shrink. You could also use a heat gun. Last, we're going to plug in our remote turn-on wire. It simply plugs right in, and then we'll zip tie the wires, clean it up. This amp comes already tuned right out of the box, so you don't need to do anything with the controls. All of our mounts are made right here in Wisconsin in the USA. We are working on a version 2, which will be a stainless one piece, which you will see probably in later videos. Next, we're going to put the headlight back in. So we're going to want to slide the plug back on. And there are 6 bolts holding this in place. So we'll get them all started. Last thing we're going to do is hook up our SSTW compression tweeter. All the connections are very simple. Simply we'll plug in the crossover and then we'll plug it into this T, which will tee right into the speaker harness under the fairing. Just like that. Simply slide the wire up through the hole. We still need to put the screw on the fairing underneath, so for now we're just going to set them there. And this plug will simply tee into your speaker plug here. So we'll get that released simply by squeezing the tab. We'll plug in the little T harness. Put that back in place. And this will plug into here. And then we will zip tie up the wires and make it look nice. We'll do the same thing on the other side. There's not a lot of room up in this Road Glide, so we put the crossovers on top of the amplifier. We zip tied it in place. Next thing, we're gonna reinstall the fairing. I'm gonna start with these two top screws. Snap that panel back in place. Now that we have our fairing installed, we're going to put the fuse back in. Simply pull this cover back off, just pressure fit. Put our 60 amp fuse back in. Put our side cover back on. Then we'll reinstall our saddlebag. Now that we have everything installed, we're going to update the A to B module with the SS tune. We're simply going to plug in the file into the USB. And then we're going to get it in accessory mode by holding this switch here. Once everything boots up, you'll see it'll ask for if you want to do a radio update. And that's basically updating the A to B module with the correct tune for the correct speakers. So we'll click update and it will download the SS tune onto the A to B module. Or once it reboots, we'll pull the drive out. Next thing we're going to do is configure our speakers. Simply hit the settings, sound, speaker setup. I'm going to go into speaker config. I'm going to put stage 2, front and rear. And we're going to start from the right front, right rear, left rear. That's our Stage 3 SS system on this 2025 Road Glide. If you'd like to get your own, you can get it at extremeaudiostore.com, see us at any rally, or come to one of our stores here in Wisconsin. We have 3 locations. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe below.